Yep. Inside, I want to kill myself. We are on an 0-7 run over the last 2 days. After tonight, it was just complete bullshit. So that's how I'm going to start off this show. Horrible Sunday, 1-5. I don't even know what to tell you about that. I just don't want to do this anymore. I have never seen anything like this, man. With the slump continuing, 2 straight losses, not a good day at all. 0-4. I just have not had a good season, man. What kind of slump that I'm on? The slump continues. I've reached a new peak, actually. I'm gonna burn my Bruins hat, man. I don't know what is going on with the Bruins. March 8th, is that what it is? I don't even know. It's March 9th, I think. Who even knows, man? I don't know what day it is anymore. I don't even know what day it is anymore, man. Back with you after the worst day that I could possibly have. Back with you, as I always am. Until I die, at least. 0-2 yesterday, and yesterday did not go well for me. 0-5. The worst month that I've ever had in my 18 years doing this. I don't know what to even tell you about this anymore. Broke the slump yesterday as the slump discontinues. The slump continues. Somebody fucking kill me, please. I don't even know what I should do at this point other than potentially end it all. What's up, everybody? It's Toad back with you with Toad Stool Sports. It is Thursday, January 8th. Nobody's going to be in the chat this time, of course, because we're coming off one of the worst days ever, one of the worst days possible, and it was way worse than it should have been. I'm not happy about it. Obviously, thanks to the people who showed up for my NFL bracket special last night. I believe I'll have Clint on for an episode of Bald to talk about the NFL playoffs as well tonight at 9 p.m., I believe, Eastern. Yesterday, Virginia Tech just started off the day. We were able to get better numbers on these two, by the way, by the end of the, well, not by the end of the day, but like middle of the day. There are a lot of better numbers out there. So Virginia Tech really was like -4, I think, somewhere in that ballpark. None of it even mattered. They blew a giant lead in the game. Virginia Tech never should have been close to, not only not, they shouldn't have been close to losing the game, but they shouldn't have even been close to not covering as a favorite. They were winning that game by double digits with 5 minutes left in the game, something like that, and they lose the game outright on a buzzer beater 3 or whatever, which at that point they weren't going to cover anyway, but ridiculous. Virginia Tech absolutely should have covered. That was complete bullshit. Kentucky was bad. Kentucky wasn't close. That was a loser. Clemson wound up being a push for me at -4. Again, you got to get these better numbers. I mean, Clemson shouldn't have even been close to not covering either. Clemson was winning that game by at least 12 points, I think, with about 6 minutes to go. So they completely fucking blew it. So that was another one that should have been an easy cover that wasn't. Grand Canyon won outright. That was an easy cover. Oh, the only actual win of the day. Yeah, great. A day where I think I went 1-5-1. Calgary can suck my cock, obviously. Fuck them. The Flamers. Yeah, they would like that, wouldn't they? I don't know what the fuck that was. And then the Toronto Raptors. That game was kind of, that was a game that could have gone either way, and money line would have hit for you on Toronto. They won by 1. They didn't cover the 1.5. And then the Chicago Bulls, that was the other bullshit one. Bullshit. Yeah. The Bulls were winning that game outright by 7 points late in the third quarter, and then they didn't even cover a double-digit underdog spread. And they were still in the game midway through the fourth quarter, and then they don't cover. It's just such fucking bullshit. So, yeah, the Bulls, Clemson pushing or losing, and Virginia Tech, all 3 of those should have been wins easily. So, and if all 3 of them won, it would have been a winning day, I think. That's how, I don't even know what I want to say. That's how, razor thin this shit is. Where, just bullshit causes 3 pillars to go down, basically, and the day becomes a monster loss where it should have been a win. How do all 3 of those go in the complete wrong direction like that? All the ones that I actually lost, cool, those are all losers, but none of those swung in the right way. So why? It's just all, total winners that just swing in the wrong way. That's what happens. Fuck you. Zach, what's up, man? Yeah, the Royals, are they playing tonight? All right. What am I doing here? Hold on. I have too many things up right now. We got to get into it, man. This took me forever to handicap. I don't like any of my plays today. I'm not thrilled with any of this. We have college basketball. I'm going to skip a bunch of these games because I just don't give a fuck. If you guys want me to talk about some of these other games, whatever, I will. But we have a lot of small conference games today. All of my plays are in small conferences. We do have a couple of Big Ten games. Northwestern is at Michigan State at 6:30 p.m. on Big Ten Network. Michigan State ranked 12th in the country. They're probably even better than that, but they are coming off multiple big games where they played Nebraska to the wire on the road, and then they crushed USC, who I believe was still ranked at the time, but just obliterated them by almost 30 points. So there's got to be some flat spot somewhere in the schedule here, and it might be here because Michigan State does play Indiana next, and Indiana is still Indiana. I mean, they're 3-1 in conference. They still have that name recognition behind them, and Northwestern hasn't even won a conference game yet, and they've dropped behind. So I think probably if you forced me to give a lean on this, I would take the points with Northwestern. Northwestern just lost at home to Minnesota, although Minnesota is actually playing decent so far, but that would be what I would do if I was going to play this. I can't even find it on the page here. Michigan State is a 12.5-point favorite. You know, Michigan State also slows the game down. Low total of 143, so it makes it a little bit more difficult for Michigan State to cover a number like that. So that would be my thought on that game very briefly. UNC Wilmington at Northeastern, I'm going to mention just because UNC Wilmington had this horrible-looking win against Hampton where UNC Wilmington won without even getting to 50 points in the game. You don't usually see something like this, but usually you want to be on a team that won really ugly because they just get no respect. And if that game was bad, which it was, UNC Wilmington should have won that game much more easily against a weak Hampton team. UNC, or a mediocre at best, I guess, in this conference, UNC Wilmington team. UNC Wilmington should be more focused after that because they know they played a horrible game there. So they're going to be at Northeastern here. Northeastern did just lose pretty easily to Campbell, and now I believe this is their first conference home game for Northeastern. Is it? Actually, I'm not sure. They played 3 conference games already. Yeah, they were all on the road. They had to go to Elon, NCAA, and Campbell. So first conference home game. They're not going to overlook UNC Wilmington, though. That's the thing. So I don't really want to play UNC Wilmington either, but I guess if I had to, that would be the side I would play, would be Wilmington laying the points just because they're still the better team and they're off a disgusting performance where they still escaped with a win. They're up to a 5-point favorite on the road here. They might not enjoy coming up to Boston right now, though, in cold rain and whatever, although it's actually not raining today, but it's cool weather. I think it's in the 40s today, but it's not an outdoor game, so whatever. 92% of the tickets, 100% of the cash on Northeastern is obviously inaccurate. But yeah, I would probably lay the points if I was going to do anything with that. Tyson, what's up, man? Thanks for hanging out. I don't know why anybody is listening to me at this point after yesterday. Yesterday alone throws, the entire year into the negative, I'm pretty sure, and it was pretty much on bullshit, as I already talked about at the beginning of the show. 3 of those losers/pushes should have been wins. All right, this first game that I'm going to give out a play on. Dude, I don't even like these plays. I don't. I tried to narrow this down to what I think are the best plays, and these are just absolute trash. I don't even know if we're getting line value on this, and I'm still going to do this. We're going to lay it with Campbell -7.5 against that Hampton team I just talked about. First of all, people are going to see, both of these teams are 8-8. They're both 2-1 in conference. Actually, this line's already up to 8.5, so there is some agreement with me on this. But again, I don't think you're teetering on the edge of having any line value on this, though. And it looks like the public side is kind of Hampton here. 88% of the tickets, 81% of the cash on them. I would try to find the best number on this or just, hook it up to a money line parlay. I don't think Campbell's going to lose this game, but people are going to see this number if they look at this game at all, which they probably won't. But, why is one team a 7-8-point favorite when both teams are the same record, right? Well, obviously the odds makers are telling you Campbell is the better team, but more importantly, I think Hampton is actually in a sandwich spot because they did just come off of that grind against UNC Wilmington. They almost beat UNC Wilmington. It was a horrible game. for UNC Wilmington, really, but kind of for both teams. But they're coming off a game where they almost beat the best team in the conference. Now they play Campbell, second straight road game. And, in 2 days they have to go to Charleston, who's the other 3-0 team in the conference right now. So that is also a bigger deal, I think. So this is basically a sandwich spot. And Campbell is coming off that win I already mentioned over Northeastern, which there's nothing to really draw from that. They're not going to be overly excited about that. Will they look ahead to Elon? I don't really think so. I mean, Elon is actually below them in the conference right now. So I think Campbell will actually show up in this one. I do have a little bit of a concern that Ken Baum has Campbell high in his luck index, so they've overperformed, and they're not very good defensively. They're better offensively, but they also go high tempo, which I think is going to throw Hampton off because Hampton wants to go slow. Campbell has faced a more difficult schedule as well, 50th in the country. Hampton is facing extremely weak schedule of 332, so I'm okay with it. Hampton's kind of in the middle of the luck index, so they're not one of these underperforming teams. I believe they are actually the better defense getting points technically, which sometimes I do look towards that. Yeah, Hampton is the better defense, but in this spot, I'm fading that sentiment. You can't always just blindly play something just because of that, although that is one thing that I look for, better defense getting points, but I'm fading it here. And yeah, Hampton wants to go slow. Campbell is not going to do that. Campbell will speed it up, so hopefully they can get over this number, although the total is kind of low, 146. Oddsmakers kind of indicating they think Hampton might be able to somehow slow this thing down a little bit, but I hate the spot for Hampton, so it'll be Campbell in that one. Ride or die, well, thank you. Yeah, it's been really good over the last 3 months, but yesterday should have been a lot better than it was. I'm so fucking pissed. Yeah, all you have to look forward to is the Royals letting you down again. That's a sad existence, man. You can root for the UMKC Roos as well. They can't let you down because they have no expectations. All right, William and Mary at Monmouth here in the Colonial as well. William and Mary just had a pretty big game against Charleston, and they lost a win streak there. So coming off a big game like that, second straight road game might be a little bit of a difficult spot for them. Monmouth is kind of just, they're an easy team to overlook, let's just say, in this conference, especially after you play one of the better teams in the conference like Charleston. Monmouth did just beat Towson on the road, which is a decent win, though. Towson looks like they're down this year, though, or at least Towson hasn't won in conference play yet. Monmouth does have Hofstra next, and Hofstra's been good in the conference, but I don't know. I don't think Monmouth is going to overlook William and Mary, who's been one of the better teams early in the season as well. The money is coming in on William and Mary, though, but I kind of disagree with it. 67% of tickets, 91% of the cash on them. They're a 3-point favorite in that one. West Georgia at North Florida. I considered West Georgia in this one, even though it looks kind of easy to do it because they have the better record. North Florida, awful record, 2-13, worst record overall in this conference in the Atlantic Sun. But look at what North Florida just did. They just played Lipscomb on the road fairly close. This game, Lipscomb beat them by 8, but this game was close towards the end, man. This was a 1-2 possession game in the final couple of minutes of the game. So North Florida really played their guts out against probably the best team in this conference, Lipscomb. So I think they could be in a bit of a letdown here, although this will be their first conference home game, though. So I don't know if they're necessarily going to overlook it because of that. And West Georgia actually has been okay in the conference so far, but the spot does set up better for West Georgia. They just beat Eastern Kentucky at home. I'm not going to put too much weight into that, although actually I think this game was probably a toss-up type of line. Actually, Eastern Kentucky was actually a road favorite in this game. So West Georgia actually pulled off an upset in that game, believe it or not, even though Eastern Kentucky has a bad record. It's an interesting game. I don't want to get involved in it, but North Florida, coming off the game that they just played, I think I would fade North Florida in this one. West Georgia is a 3-point road favorite there. I would probably lay it in that game just because of what North Florida just played. So those are my thoughts on that. Mr. Pinsey, what's up, man? Queens and Jacksonville. Jacksonville's kind of in a similar spot, I think, because Jacksonville just played Austin Peay after they played Lipscomb on the road. Jacksonville playing Austin Peay. Austin Peay is actually technically atop the conference right now. I don't know, due to some tiebreaker scenario or something. although Queens is also undefeated in the conference so far, but I think Queens is the team that's going to get overlooked. Jacksonville just played pretty well against Austin Peay. Only lost by 3 against them on the road. Basically took them to the limit. Austin Peay was a pretty big favorite in that one. So I think Jacksonville is going to be in a letdown spot off of that. So I would look towards Queens in that one. My guy, I don't know if he still follows me, the Queens coach, or if he's had enough of my insanity. Queens just beat Bellarmine in the last game. Easy win for them at home. Nothing to really look at there. So I would lean to Queens. The money is agreeing with me, it looks like, on this one. They're already up from 4 to 5.5. So again, these college lines, man, you got to get them before they move in a lot of cases. So it's an interesting game, though, that one. All right. Let me see here. We got next up is another one of my plays. Even though this one is a game where it looks almost too easy to play the side that I'm playing because they're pretty obviously the better team. But the spot for me lines up in both directions here. We're going to play UT Martin against Moorhead State. This is one I know it looks easy to do it because UT Martin has the better record, obviously. Moorhead a bit down this year, although both teams have the same record in conference right now. But first of all, I believe UT Martin, I believe this is actually a double revenge spot for them because, yeah, I think Moorhead beat them both times last year, so that is one thing to consider here. Yeah, Moorhead beat them here at Moorhead State in overtime last year, and then they beat them again later in the season. The last game of the regular season, they beat them at UT Martin. So it is a double revenge spot, so there is that. So I don't think UT Martin is going to overlook this game. But there's even more reason for them to not overlook this game because UT Martin, they just had a bad game, or I don't know if they were looking ahead or what was going on here, but they almost lost against Eastern Illinois. Eastern Illinois is an awful team. UT Martin should not have been anywhere close to losing this game, and they almost lost as a big favorite. It was a back-and-forth game, so I think that's going to shock them back into focus. They had a ton of turnovers, man. Like, they won the rebound battle. They were clearly the better team in the game, but 18 turnovers is basically why this game was so close. It shouldn't have been as close as it was. Both teams actually shot poorly in the game. But the turnovers are what did it. That's something UT Martin's got to clean up. Even though they're on the road here, I think they will be able to. But Moorhead, for their purposes, they're not in a good spot. They just played Lindenwood and SIU Edwardsville already, who are both good teams in the conference as well, although I know UT Martin's not really a team you're going to overlook either. But look at what Moorhead just did against SIU Edwardsville, man. Moorhead was an underdog in this game, probably of about, I don't know, I would guess several points here, but SIU Edwardsville was winning this entire game, man, and somehow Moorhead pulled this out of their ass at the end, even though they were losing by double digits with like a couple minutes left. I don't know how Moorhead won this game, but it was a game where they basically weren't even in the game. I don't know how they won. Ridiculous win for them. They got out-rebounded in the game. SIU Edwardsville led for the majority of the game. I mean, how did this happen in this game? I actually don't really know, aside from the fact that Moorhead shot 53% from the field, even though SIU Edwardsville had 12 more field goal attempts in the game. So Moorhead just had this outlier shooting percentage in the game. They actually had more free throw attempts, which usually you don't see from the road team. And I know they're the home team here, but still, I just think that was just a weird outlier game. And they do play SEMO next, so I don't know if they're... Really, they shouldn't overlook UT Martin, but it's really about what did this team just do? What is this team coming off of? I think Tennessee Martin is the way to go in this game. You might have to lay points. I found a cheap money line on this. And again, this line is already moving against, like it's moving towards me, man. It's already up from 2 to 3 now. It was 2.5 when I looked right before I started the show. I found a really cheap money line on it. But again, laying the points, I think laying 2.5 or 3, I think is probably an okay way to play it as well. So again, I apologize for this. These small conferences, man, the public doesn't get involved in these games, and these lines move like crazy. Sam Houston against Delaware in the Conference USA. This isn't one of my plays, but Sam Houston just basically took Middle Tennessee to the wire. And if you saw my bracketology, I have Middle Tennessee actually winning this conference right now, although it looks like, yeah, maybe I'm going to be wrong about that because Liberty looks good right now. But Sam Houston just took Middle Tennessee to the wire, basically, almost beat them. Now they play Delaware at home. Might be a team that they overlook a little bit. And Liberty is actually the next opponent for Sam Houston in 2 days. So they're in a sandwich here between the top two teams in the conference. So I don't like that. And Sam Houston, by the way, also is, I think they're pretty underrated right now. Ken Baum actually has, let me see, has them 123rd in the country, which really is not bad at all. They face a difficult schedule. They're low in the luck index. So I know I'm saying that you should fade them here, but that's one of the reasons why I'm not going to fade them is because they're actually an underrated team. So I kind of worry about that. They are facing Delaware here. Delaware did just beat Kennesaw. Kennesaw isn't great this year, I don't think, but they've been okay recently, like in the couple of conferences they've been in. So decent win for Delaware there. I don't think Delaware is going to overlook Sam Houston, though. So for me, I think I would take the points with Delaware here. Sam Houston is up to 11.5, 80% of the tickets and 89% of the cash on Delaware. But to me, it looks like the actual money might be coming in on the Delaware side. The total's pretty low at 144.5, so I would lean towards fading Sam Houston State in what I think is a sandwich spot, or I guess they're just called Sam Houston now. By the way, for UT Martin's game here, I know UT Martin is ridiculously high in the luck index and has a weak schedule, so yes, I worry about that. But they are decent defensively at the very least. They play slow, and who am I fading there? Moorhead? Moorhead is also really high in the luck index. So both teams are high in the luck index. So it's like, well, one team's going to have to win there. And Moorhead is actually really bad on both sides of the ball. Tennessee Martin is actually the better team, both offensively and defensively there. So even though, yeah, the luck index is something, like both teams have kind of overperformed so far in that one. So just throwing that out there. Both teams actually play somewhat slow as well. So, yeah, tempo-wise, laying points on the road, maybe a little bit of a concern, but it is a small line in that game. Denver at South Dakota State. Denver is coming off a big game where they took St. Thomas to the limit. That was a big game for them. St. Thomas is probably the best team in the Summit. So Denver's coming off a big game, although I don't know if they're necessarily going to overlook South Dakota State, though. Even though South Dakota State looks a little down this year, they're usually one of the better teams in this conference. South Dakota State is coming off a loss to North Dakota, though, so they may bounce back from that. But maybe you worry that they have a little bit of a look ahead to North Dakota State, too, although that's not for 6 days. So overall in that game, I think South Dakota State is the way I would play it. They dropped a little bit from 8 to 7.5, but I think if I was going to play that game, I would lay the points with South Dakota State. The odds makers are also telling you they're the better team, even though both teams are 8 and 9. So South Dakota State almost certainly had the more difficult out-of-conference schedule out of the two of them. Whew, all right. I don't know. What else did I want to talk about? I was going to talk about how, like, dude, early on, sometimes you'll find these, like, conference. I was going to mention it with Sam Houston, I think. You'll see these teams that are, like, bad in conference, like Sam Houston right now. They're 0-3 in conference, but they already lost to New Mexico State, Western Kentucky, and Middle Tennessee all on the road. So those are all not easy games. So that's another thing about Sam Houston, that they're actually probably a little bit underrated if you just look at their record. Okay. I guess I'll talk about Abilene Christian, I guess. Abilene Christian, they just upset Utah Valley, man. So that was a huge win for them. Utah Valley is the best team in the WAC here. Abilene Christian somehow beat them and beat them soundly by 17 points. So I think Abilene Christian could be in a little bit of a letdown spot here, although I don't know if they're really going to overlook another conference team that's above them. Tarleton State, although they do have UT Arlington after this. So those are both decent opponents in this conference. Really the only team in this conference I think that you're really going to overlook, I think, is Southern Utah, to be honest, at this point. But Abilene Christian does look like they're in pretty much a letdown spot here. Tarleton, though, they always seem to overperform. Like I said, the last few years, like, it's always like they're not as good as their record looks. They're always high up in Ken Baum's luck index. And Tarleton just beat UT Arlington on the road. They came close to Utah Valley, and then they beat Cal Baptist, who I know is 0-3 in the conference, but Cal Baptist isn't that bad. So that was a decent win for Tarleton. I don't know who was the favorite in this game, but that was a decent win nonetheless. Yeah, it looks like Cal Baptist was actually a favorite on the road in that game. So it was a little bit of an upset for Tarleton State. So I just don't want to touch this game, but if I was going to play it, I would actually probably lay it with Tarleton, even though you have to lay 5 points here. It is a low total, 138.5, and the money seems to not agree with me. 93% of tickets and only 90% of the cash on Tarleton. I don't know what public bettors are coming in and playing Tarleton, though, but I think it is a letdown spot generally for Abilene Christian, but I'm avoiding the game. We have more Big Ten action at 8:30 p.m. on Big Ten Network. Number 16, Illinois, hosting Rutgers. Rutgers just got a win in the conference, so hey, at least there's that. They got a conference win. They beat Oregon at home. Kind of a weird spot. Oregon's not great this year. It was a weird spot for Oregon, to have to play out in Piscataway, New Jersey, or wherever the hell Rutgers is. Rutgers, they come into this game with a little bit of momentum. They're not going to overlook Illinois, but Rutgers plays this slow, ugly style, and Illinois is going to speed this thing up most likely because that's what they do. Is Illinois going to overlook them? I don't think so. I don't know, because they do have Iowa next. That's a big game for Illinois in 3 days, but Illinois just had kind of a bad performance against Penn State. They only beat them by 8 on the road, so I'm not entirely convinced they're going to overlook Rutgers here. This is a stay away from me. As far as the market read here, Illinois is up to a 22-point favorite, but the total is low at 145.5. So if Rutgers is able to somehow muck this thing up, and you do think Illinois might be in a look ahead here, maybe you could look taking Rutgers plus the points. Illinois might not really have that much incentive to just blow Rutgers off the court here either. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts on that game. I don't have a strong opinion on it at all, though. Garrett, what's up, man? Wait, what? The Canes and the Rebels? What? There's no hockey team called the Rebels. What are we talking about? We do have SEMO and Southern Indiana here. Southern Indiana just had a close game, 2 close games, actually, really 3 against Moorhead, but that one was less big of a game probably. But then against SIU Edwardsville and Lindenwood, both on the road. Lindenwood, I think, might be the best team in this Ohio Valley Conference right now. There's a lot of Ohio Valley today, man. I actually have 2 Ohio Valley plays today. This is not one of them, but Southern Indiana's coming off 2 big performances, man. And they do have UT Martin next, but I just don't think they're going to overlook SEMO either, because they're one of the better teams in the conference. Southern Indiana is still trying to get their first conference win, so I just don't really want to fade them here, although I think they are in a bad spot. Like, how many games in a row can they put in a huge effort like this, man? Although they are back home here, and the last time they were at home, they lost, so some of that is a positive for Southern Indiana. Like, in college basketball, when a team comes back home, because there's no real road trip return type of scenario in college, because there's no family life to get back to, whatever. A lot of times if a team played a couple games on the road, they come back home, and the last time they were at home, they were bad at home. They tend to actually bounce back. For Southeast Missouri, they're coming off an easy win over Western Illinois. I don't really see them not showing up in this game, but Southern Indiana is an easy team to overlook, but I would lay it with Southeast Missouri if I was going to play it. SEMO, they're up from 6 to 7 here, so the market seems to agree with my analysis on that one. Oh, yes, that's right. I was like, the Carolina Hurricanes. But yes, you're right. College, yeah, you're right. He is. I'm an idiot. Kyle, thank you, sir. Dude, this is what I get when I don't have any sleep. I just don't think of them as their team names. I just think Miami, Ole Miss. That's just where my mind is. I don't think of them by their team names. Yes, it is the Canes and the Rebels, yes. But, well, the reason why I thought Carolina, though, is because Garrett is from Carolina. That's why I was thinking Carolina. Next up is going to be one of my plays. We're going to take the points with Little Rock at plus 3.5. You might be able to get a better number than this. Actually, this line looks like it's moving in my direction too, man. So the market's agreeing with my plays today, except for my last one. So I apologize, but SIU Edwardsville is down from 4.5 to 3 here. The total's really low at 133.5, so something to keep in mind. Now, for SIU Edwardsville, you might be thinking, well, I just talked about SIU Edwardsville, right? And they had that ridiculous loss to Moorhead State, right, where SIU Edwardsville should bounce back from that because they dominated that game and they lost on like a fluke bullshit, whatever it was at the end of that game. Yeah, that's true, but SIU Edwardsville played after that already, and they did bounce back, and they beat Lindenwood. So SIU Edwardsville just beat the best team in the conference and delivered them their first loss. Huge win for SIU Edwardsville. I call them CUE, SIUE. Huge win for them. They're staying at home, and up next they got to play UT Martin, then SEMO, both on the road, then Tennessee State. And, oh yeah, those are the other three teams that are atop the conference right now. So, and they played Moorhead to within 1 point, like I said before that, and technically that's a big game, I guess, because Moorhead is 3-1 in conference at least, although they weren't coming into that game. But yeah, that game, SIU Edwardsville should have bounced back from that. They did, but now they got all those games coming up, man, that are all bigger games than this one. So it's a sandwich spot. I think they're going to overlook Little Rock here. Little Rock not looking good in the conference here so far, and Little Rock just took a home loss to Tennessee State. Tennessee State was a very small favorite, I think, in this game. They're an okay team in the conference, but I expect Little Rock to show up in this one, man. They're going to show up for a game against one of the somewhat better teams in the conference, I would have to imagine. So we're going to take the points in this one. Now, as far as what Ken Bum says about this, he's got Little Rock as bad. I know they're in the bottom 60 or so teams in the country. He does have them as being somewhat unlucky, 237 in luck. They're pretty bad on both sides of the ball. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue they're not bad, but they play slow. They ugly it up. SIU Edwardsville is not that much better, though, to be honest. At 260th in Ken Bum's rankings, he has them really lucky at 79th in the country. So he's telling you that SIU Edwardsville has overperformed so far. And while, yes, they have the better defense, SIU Edwardsville does, we're fading them as a favorite here. So, and both teams play quite slow. So I think it's going to be a slow, ugly game. As you saw, the total's really low as well. So points are worth more. Taking the points is worth more. Each point is worth more when that's the case. And he has SIU Edwardsville as having faced the 5th or 6th easiest strength of schedule so far as well. So they're not as good as maybe they look right now. So Little Rock is the play in that one. I know we're in the dregs, man. I mean, this is a Thursday college basketball card where everything is just ugly. UC Davis is at Santa Barbara here. UC Davis just had a really bad game, I would say, at home against Bakersfield, Cal State Bakersfield. I think UC Davis is a pretty large favorite in this game. Yeah, which is why I'm pointing it out. So they should bounce back, I would imagine, after getting upset at home. Might have been looking ahead because Santa Barbara tends to be one of the better teams in this conference. Santa Barbara, though, they're coming off a pretty ugly loss themselves at Northridge. So Northridge, mediocre team this year. So I think both teams should actually be focused in that one. So I just can't come in and do it in that one. Santa Barbara is actually getting the money up to -4.5, even though when I first looked at that game, I was thinking UC Davis was going to be a side to look at here. But looking at what both teams are coming off of, I think it kind of balances out to the point where, yeah, maybe the better team that's favored at home, Santa Barbara, does show up and just get the job done there. Montana is at Idaho here. Montana just beat Northern Colorado. Big win, and this is another situation where Northern Colorado, even though they're 0-2 in this conference right now, their 2 losses were on the road at Montana and Montana State, and we had Montana State as a win on the show. So Northern Colorado's not as bad as that might make them look. Like, they're going to be one of the better teams in this conference. Montana and Montana State both are as well. I'm not as convinced about Portland State or Idaho, but Montana's playing Idaho here. Montana is coming off that big win over Northern Colorado. They have to go on the road here to Idaho. Could be a difficult spot for them. For Idaho, Idaho just barely got by Eastern Washington at home, so that was not a good performance. That was the conference opener for Idaho, and they barely got by a really ugly Eastern Washington team that only has 2 wins on the season. Although I think they faced somewhat of a difficult out-of-conference schedule, but still, Eastern Washington not very good this year. So maybe Idaho is looking ahead to playing the 2 Montanas. I don't know what the deal was, but I expect a better performance from Idaho this time. So I would probably lay the points with Idaho in this one if I was going to play it. That line is actually moving in my direction as well, up from 3.5 to 4 here. So again, yeah, just putting the info out there. Pepperdine at San Diego. I considered this game briefly. Pepperdine, they just went to Pacific, and they took Pacific to the wire, and that doesn't seem big, but Pacific was a big favorite in this game, man. So it was a big performance from Pepperdine. Now that's what they're coming off of, and they have to play San Francisco next at home. So this does look a bit sandwichy, and it's their third road game in a row. So I think it's a difficult spot for Pepperdine. They're facing another one of the teams that's not very good in this conference record-wise, San Diego. San Diego is coming off a couple of big games on the road against San Francisco and Santa Clara, but they did lose by 28 in the last game. So back at home, I think they're going to be better. And by the way, the last time San Diego was at home, they only lost to Gonzaga by 6. So they played really, really well on this floor, although maybe that means being back here, they won't play as well being back here. But I think it is a bad spot for Pepperdine, though. So I do like San Diego in this one. I would lay it if I was going to play it. This line's up, or actually it went down from 5 to, well, it went down from 5 to 3, and now it's back up to 4.5. So this line's been moving a bit. But yes, I would lay it with San Diego if I was going to play it. And I also don't know what public bettor is going to be coming in and laying points with a 6-10 team, even if they are against a 5-10 team or whatever Pepperdine is there. 5-12, excuse me. All right. Riverside and Bakersfield. I like Riverside in this one. I don't want Riverside to cause me more pain, but as I just pointed out, Cal State Bakersfield, they just went to UC Davis. They pulled off the upset. That was a crazy upset of UC Davis there by Bakersfield. Nice road upset for them. And they were coming off a close game at home against UC Irvine the game before that. So they're coming off 2 big games. They don't have a big game up next against a weak Long Beach State team, but I think they are going to be in a letdown spot coming off of those 2 huge games there. UC Riverside, they're still sitting around after that loss that we took on the show. They got drilled by Hawaii. I don't know what that was. Horrible game for UC Riverside, losing by 43 points. But whenever that happens, I think you're going to show up with a lot of focus in the next game, man. So I like Riverside in this one. It's not on my card, but I do like it. Bakersfield has moved up from 3 to 3.5. I do not agree with that move. I would take the points with Riverside in that game if I was going to play it, which that one did not make my card. The more I talk about it, I almost want to do it, but I'll leave it off my card. We do have Seattle at Oregon State here. Seattle coming off playing Gonzaga, pretty close. Nice game for them on the road. I think they actually took them into overtime. And then actually, we faded them off of that, and they lost by margin against St. Mary's. But Seattle was kind of hanging around for a while in that game, too. Now they're playing a third straight road game. And I'm not going to say they're going to overlook Oregon State because they are still that former Pac-12 team, but they might run out of gas. Although Oregon State's coming off a big game themselves against Washington State because those are the Pac-12 orphans, so it's kind of a rivalry between the two. But Oregon State lost it by double digits, so they might actually show up with more intensity in this one. So overall, I probably lean towards Oregon State in that one. And they are the team with the worst record. The money is agreeing with me on that one as well. Seattle's up to a 4.5-point favorite. Low total of 139. Seattle gets involved in all these ugly games, low-scoring games. Tickets are evenly split 50-50, but Oregon State has 62% of the cash. I do agree with the money in that one. My last play is going to be to lay the points with Pacific, -2.5. This one is the only one where the market looked like it was disagreeing with me, but it might be beginning to agree again. It dropped from 3.5 to 2.5, and now it's back up to 3. I know it is kind of a low total here at 145, but I like the spot. As I already talked about with Pacific, Pacific is coming off a bad performance, man, against Pepperdine. So I think Pacific was kind of, maybe an overly confident mood after they crushed Oregon State in the previous game. Again, it's still big when you do that because they're one of the former big boys. So I think Pacific just didn't have their best game here against Pepperdine. They almost lost the game, but they won. So I think that's actually good because I think it'll give them focus and momentum coming into this game against Portland, even though, they got to go on the road. And, I know this is another one where we're laying points with a team with the better record. I know if you want to go money line on this, you could too, but I don't know how cheap of a price you can get on this. I know Pacific is the better record. I know we're laying a couple of favorites here that are teams that have the better record, but you can't just auto fade those, And this is about the spot, obviously, because that's what I do. And look at the spot that Portland is in here, man. Portland, they just went on the road to San Francisco, and they almost won the game against San Francisco. They lost by 5. They were in this game. They were winning the game in the second half, and the game was close down the stretch. They were within 2 points in the final minute of this game, and they were massive underdogs here. They were probably, I don't even know, but they were definitely double-digit underdogs in this game. That was a huge performance from Portland against one of the better teams in this conference. Now they have to face Pacific, and yeah, I know Pacific has a good record, but look who Portland has next, man. Oregon State. And I think that might actually be a bigger game for Portland because Oregon State is still one of the big boys, the big names in Oregon. So I think that is a little big brother situation there. So I actually think this is a sandwich that Portland is in here. Plus, what should be a focus spot for Pacific. So that's where I'm going with it, Pacific, as the small favorite there. And that is my last college basketball play. We do also have Fullerton at UC San Diego. UC San Diego, pretty satisfying win, I would say, against Hawaii. San Diego bounced back from an ugly loss to Cal Poly. I think they were looking ahead because Hawaii is really their main competition right now for the Big West, even though UC Irvine is in there, not to be overlooked, undefeated in the conference right now. But UC San Diego got that nice win against Hawaii. I could see them maybe being in a bit of a letdown mode against Cal State Fullerton team that they might just overlook. Fullerton did just play UC Irvine, but they got smoked pretty much by 22 points. So they're probably in more of a spot where they're going to just show up focused, even though they tried to do that in their last game, I would imagine as well. The money agrees with me on this one, too, for what it's worth. UC San Diego is a 13-point favorite. 75% of tickets on them, but 75% of the cash fading them and playing UC Fullerton, or Cal State Fullerton, in that one. And then we do have a Big Ten game late at night. The degenerate hours. Big Ten Network has Ohio State at Oregon. I considered this game. I like Oregon in this game, but I think the line is just a little bit too questionable in this one. Ohio State, they're coming up playing Nebraska basically to the wire. I know we lost on that game. Ohio State had some opportunities to win that game late, and they didn't do it. That was a big game. So they're coming off of that, so it should be a hangover spot for them. And if that wasn't bad enough, they have to go out to the Pacific Coast and play a late-night game. And, I talk about these teams from the East going out west to play these late-night games. It messes with their biological clock, so I don't think that's good. And they're facing this Oregon team. It's been very mediocre. They do play Washington next, although Washington not really going to be cause for look ahead right now. Now, for Oregon, though, Oregon is coming off an overtime game at Rutgers, which it wasn't a good loss for Oregon, losing to Rutgers, but they were out on the East Coast, man. Oregon's been on the East Coast for like a week, so they actually have to adjust to the time zone as well, which they should do it more easily because now they've done this a couple of years. They're more used to it, but I worry about it still a little bit. And they have Nebraska, Michigan, and Michigan State all up next, so they do have a bunch of big games up next, although I don't think they're going to overlook Ohio State, though, because Ohio State's still kind of a bubble team right now and whatever. I lean to Oregon in this game, but I don't like the number. Ohio State's got 55% of the tickets and cash right now. Oregon flipped from a 1-point dog. If they were a 1-point dog, I might be on this one. But now they're almost a 3-point favorite, 2.5 to 3. I don't like that, man, because Ken Pom actually has Oregon 78th, and he has Ohio State 38th. So I worry about him, and he has Ohio State as the significantly better team. So the fact that they're like a 3-point, I don't know if there's an injury situation for Ohio State or what, but really they should not be a 3-point dog in this game, though, even if it is a bad spot for them. If it was close to a pick'em price, I think Oregon would be the side, but I don't think you can lay 3 with it. If you want to throw Oregon in some like money line parlays or something, or yes, find a way to play the money line on them, you could do that, but I'm leaving it off my card. I did forget to talk about Pacific as far as Ken Pom's rankings here. Ken Pom has Pacific 129th. He does have them somewhat lucky, but what can you do, really? Pacific's actually a pretty balanced team. They're like close to being top 100 in both offense and defense, so that's not horrible as far as they're concerned. And they are definitely the significantly better team over Portland, where Ken Pom has Portland way down at 230th. And even though I think he has them as having faced the slightly more difficult schedule, not that different. Both teams somewhat high in the luck index, I think. But he has Portland also as a fast-paced team, but they're also a very bad offensive team. So they're a very weird mix. Fast-paced, but better defensively. I don't know. I don't really understand when teams do that, but Pacific is still the better team on both sides of the ball. They're just the only of the two teams that can really score. And yeah, Portland will try to speed the game up in that one, but I think Pacific might be able to slow it down still and control the tempo in that one. And then the West Coast Conference does have a couple of good games here late at night. San Francisco at Loyola Marymount. These are both competitive teams in the conference. And, of course, as I already pointed out, San Francisco barely got by Portland in their last game. So I think they're going to show up with a lot more focus here after they almost lost as a big favorite. Usually you see teams in a spot like that come out with more intensity. Loyola Marymount, though, they're not going to overlook this game either. And they just got killed by Gonzaga, which, you know, you can't really blame them for losing to a team that's that good, but they got killed. So I think they'll show up as well. Although my lean in this one is San Francisco, but the money's disagreeing with me on this one. Loyola's up to a 1.5-point favorite, 75% of the tickets, 88% of the cash on them. Loyola Marymount up from 1 to 1.5, but I think San Francisco's in the stronger bounce back scenario. And then Santa Clara is at Gonzaga. Santa Clara is trying to assert themselves in this conference, but they're still going to be a double-digit dog in this one. They're coming off an easy win over San Diego. Santa Clara's faced a pretty easy conference schedule so far. Gonzaga hasn't really faced a difficult one yet either. You know, Gonzaga does have their Washington rivalry, if you want to call it that, up next against Washington State. Don't know if they're necessarily going to overlook Santa Clara, though, because Santa Clara has been good again in this conference, but I don't know. It's a tough game to read. Gonzaga dropped from 16.5 to 15. They have 83% of the cash on them. 58% of tickets on Santa Clara, which I don't understand. I don't know what public bettors are playing Santa Clara in this game, although the cash is saying Gonzaga. I slightly disagree with it. This game's on ESPN2, by the way, but Santa Clara might have a tough time trying to do anything at Gonzaga. I mean, Gonzaga's just, they're an elite team, man. So, yeah, but of course that's factored into the line. That San Francisco and Loyola Marymount game, by the way, is on CBS Sports. All right, we got to do hockey. There's a huge hockey board today, and I am completely skipping it, by the way. I hate the hockey board today. There are a ton of games, and I'm skipping all of it. Jeffrey, what's up, man? Thanks for hanging out. Hockey, yeah, I hate this board, man. I absolutely despise it. Like, it is pretty rare that you're going to have 12 hockey games or whatever, and I don't have a play on any of them, but that's just the way that it is. Calgary is at Boston. Calgary continuing a road trip here. They just lost at Montreal 4-1. They've lost their last two games by a combined score of 9-2. Should debatably be a bounce-back spot here, but they're on a back-to-back, and they're playing a third game in 4 days, all in different cities, so that is my concern with Calgary here. And they did just beat Boston in Calgary on December 29th. Will they overlook Boston, though? I don't know. I mean, Pittsburgh is their next opponent. Pittsburgh has a better record. I lean to Calgary in this game, but I have some concerns with it, like the fact that their rest scenario is not very good, and I don't know if they're going to completely focus on the Bruins or not. But the spot is definitely worse for the Bruins. Even though the Bruins were off yesterday, the Bruins are returning from a road trip they've been on since December 27th. Wasn't a great road trip. They lost overall on the road trip. They had a really bad loss to finish the road trip, 7-4 to Seattle, but You know, I always talk about it. When a team returns home from a road trip, a lot of times they will overlook their opponent or they'll just become distracted by having to get back to family life and whatever. They do have a game against the Rangers on ABC on Saturday. That is a bigger game, man. Some nationally televised afternoon hockey between Boston and New York. 2 original 6 games, so I don't like it. It's a bad spot for the Bruins. So I lean Calgary here, but the money somewhat is disagreeing with me here, and I can't really just get on board with Calgary either, though. So lean Calgary, but I don't like it, and the money's kind of disagreeing. Boston is down from -150 to -132. 53% of the cash on Boston, 52% of the tickets are on Calgary for what that's worth, which maybe that's not worth much. I don't agree. The Penguins are not back. They're a mirage, which is what I was saying early in the season, and then they just had a complete, like, horrible stretch. But no, this Pittsburgh team is not good. They're a Jekyll and Hyde team, but they were absolutely nowhere near as good as they were early in the season. And the oddsmakers are, I mean, I'll talk about that game in a bit. The oddsmakers are telling you how good they think Pittsburgh is, which is worse than New Jersey. So, yeah, that's what they think about Pittsburgh. They're not good. I'm telling you that right now. I was telling you that when they had a good record early in the season. They hit a stretch where they lost a ton of games, and it's going to happen again. Florida is at Montreal. Pittsburgh actually has horrific goaltending, too. Like, they're just bad, dude. Florida is coming off a game where they just got drilled by Toronto on Tuesday, 4-1 at Toronto. I think Florida's in a bounce-back spot. We had Toronto in that game because I thought it was a sandwich spot. Florida had beaten Colorado the game before that. Huge win, and that was after playing in the Winter Classic and getting killed. But Florida, huge game against Colorado, so they had a sandwich spot. Horrible game against Toronto. I think they bounced back from it. Part of that handicap was they were going to overlook them and be focused more on Montreal. I think they will be here. Montreal played yesterday, and they beat us somehow. I don't even know how. That was a great spot to fade Montreal. I trust the process. Montreal returned home from a road trip. They'd beaten Dallas the game before that. They had this game up next today. It was a bad spot, dude, other than the fact that they had a little bit of rest, but I don't think that rest is a positive when you come back home. But I do think it's a positive spot after you play that first game back home. The next game is a positive spot if you didn't play well in the first game, but they did, and they are in a back-to-back, although, yes, they're staying at home. Yeah, they had some rest prior to that Calgary game, but, you know, I think I got to lean Florida in this game to bounce back from such a horrible performance in the last game. The money is agreeing with me on that, even though Florida initially dropped from -140 to -115. That might have been because of a goalie change or something like that. I think Florida might have their second-string goalie. It might be Tarasov in net here. I'm not sure, though. Well, actually, we could probably figure that out, right? Because, let me see. But actually, we don't know because Florida didn't play yesterday. It probably, maybe it will be because Bobrovsky played the last game and they were kind of alternating. But whatever, extra value on Florida, I guess, if you like that. They're down to -115, 60% of the cash on Florida, 65% of the tickets on Montreal. So the money agrees with me on Florida in that one, but I don't have that strong of an opinion. The Blues, they suck. Their goalies are terrible. I don't even know who their backup goalie is now. They demoted Binnington. Isn't Binnington their backup goalie now? Vancouver is at the Detroit Red Wings. Vancouver on a 4-game losing streak here. I mean, Vancouver's not a great team. They're coming off a game at Buffalo. They lost 5-3. I don't think Vancouver's going to overlook Detroit, though. Detroit's been a decent team, so I think Vancouver will at least try to show up for the game. Vancouver did just go to Ottawa for a single road game and beat them. They've had 2 days off, but they have this weird single home game, and then after this they play Montreal and then Carolina. So it does look a little bit sandwichy here for Detroit, and maybe Vancouver, they're going to try to get a win here on this road trip after starting the road trip off on the wrong foot. So I lean Vancouver in this one. Where are we looking here? Money agrees with me on this one, too. Detroit has plummeted from -180 to -145. Again, maybe because of goaltender information. I'm not sure. Like I don't think the market itself can move the line like that. 78% of tickets on Detroit, 58% of the cash on Vancouver. I agree with Vancouver in that one. I'm just not sure it's enough of a bad spot for Detroit for me to get on that one. That one, I was considering it. And I was considering Calgary, but I don't know. I don't love it. Buffalo is at the Rangers. This is a game where I think both teams are going to show up as well. Buffalo just beat Vancouver, but they're not going to overlook the Rangers, man, who are usually considered to be the better New York team. So it's almost like a little big brother situation, even though Buffalo has the better record right now. I'm still not really totally sold on Buffalo after they went on this huge hot streak. I don't know, man. But I think they'll show up with focus, and you know road teams do well this year at Madison Square Garden, but the Rangers are not in a bad spot either. They just lost to Utah. They've had 2 days off since then, and they're staying at home. And I believe we had Utah in that game because the Rangers were returning home from a road trip that culminated in them winning in Florida in the Winter Classic. So I believe we faded them. We got the win with Utah, and the Rangers possibly were looking ahead to this game against Buffalo. Rangers have rest coming into this one. Not a horrible spot for them. The money is actually on Buffalo, though. Buffalo up from -104 to -128. So the odds makers, maybe they are saying that Buffalo maybe is not that bad. I don't know. I'm still not sold on them. 50% of the tickets and 78% of the cash on Buffalo. So the market read says Buffalo. I'm not going to do anything with it. Toronto at Philadelphia. Toronto got that big win in their last game over Florida. That was a nice win over the returning champs, man. Now they're going to Philadelphia. I don't think they're going to overlook Philadelphia, though. And Toronto has a decent amount of rest because they had a couple of games off prior to that. But big win over Florida nonetheless. You could maybe make the argument this is a bit of a letdown spot, but Philadelphia's got a decent record, so I don't really know they're going to overlook Philly here. Philadelphia returned home from a road trip, and they still crushed Anaheim, so I don't know. I liked Anaheim in that game, and the market completely disagreed with me on that one. I don't know what the market was seeing, but the market was right on the game, and Philadelphia won. Now they've won their last 2 games with 5 goals each against Edmonton and Anaheim. This is a spot where they might look past Toronto, man, because they got Tampa Bay up next twice and then Buffalo. So I'm not sure that this is a focus spot for Philadelphia, man. I think the spot is actually worse for Philadelphia in this one, although I don't love the spot for either team. But I don't know. For me, it's kind of Toronto or pass, but the money is on Philadelphia. Even though they dropped from minus 125 to minus 115, 73% of the cash on them, 78% of the tickets are on Toronto. But I kind of disagree with the market percentages there. We got, where are we at here? Where did I leave off? New Jersey and Pittsburgh. New Jersey is coming off, I believe they lost 9-0. Yeah, so they should be in a major bounce back spot here. If you lose 9-0, man, you're going to be really, really pissed coming into the next game. I don't know what that was in that game. Markstrom, I don't know what the hell happened in there. Yeah, New Jersey had double the shots on goal that the Islanders did, but that was because they were so far behind. They were just throwing everything at the net. Now they're going to Pittsburgh. You know you're going to get focused out of New Jersey, man. I mean, anytime a team loses like that, you're going to get focused. It wasn't exactly the greatest spot that New Jersey was in after they played against Carolina the prior game, and they did have Pittsburgh on deck, which, even though I don't think Pittsburgh is good, they're a team that's drawing some focus at least. Pittsburgh, by the way, still has more losses than wins, so how good are they really? Their record just looks okay because all their losses are in overtime. Pittsburgh's won 5 more games in a row, but I don't know, man. I mean, they just beat Columbus in overtime, and that was a game, I'm pretty sure that was a bullshit win. I mean, that game was, yeah, it was complete bullshit. I remember that game. Columbus was winning that game 4-1, and it was like late in the second period, 4-1 Columbus. Pittsburgh had no business winning that game, and Pittsburgh tied the game with 20 seconds left in regulation and then won in overtime. Absolute bullshit win for Pittsburgh. Now they have 3 days off, but in this case, I don't know that that's necessarily a good thing. They're returning home from a road trip, although it was only to Detroit and Columbus, so I'm not going to put much weight into that, a short road trip. But what I will weigh is the fact that they've won 5 games in a row, and when you've done that and you have a bullshit win in the most recent one, I don't think having 3 days off or whatever this is going to help you. I think it's going to hurt you. I think it's going to disrupt your momentum. So I don't know. And how much focus are they going to have on New Jersey, who's got kind of a mediocre record here? I don't know, man. This game is New Jersey or pass. Pittsburgh is not even getting home ice in this game, by the way. So the odds makers are telling you New Jersey's the slightly better team, maybe factoring in the goalies as well. Pittsburgh up from minus 115 to minus 118, but 68% of the tickets and 74% of the cash on the Devils. I would play the Devils in this one. I'm trying to weigh, like, what are my stronger opinions in hockey here, man? I mean, this is maybe one of them. I mean, anytime you see a team that lost 9-0, that's a pretty strong opinion to jump on them in the next game. You know, I'd like this more if Pittsburgh had a bigger game up after this, which I don't think they do. I'm going to stay off of it, but yeah, Pittsburgh only has Calgary next. Very unfortunate. I wish they had almost any other opponent coming up next, and then I would probably actually do it, but I like New Jersey there. Anaheim at Carolina. The Rebels against the Canes, the Rebel Ducks against the Canes. Anaheim's lost 6 games in a row, 7 games in a row. Not good. They've given up 4 or more goals in their last 6 games, 5 or more in all but one of them. I mean, this is bad times for Anaheim right here, man. And they're playing a 3rd game in 4 days, all on the road, all in different cities, which is not great, but it should also be somewhat of a bounce-back spot for them. They should show up with focus, especially when they're playing Carolina. For Carolina, they just crushed Dallas. Very satisfying win. beating Dallas 6-3. Dallas, good team. Carolina looks like they're in a bit of a letdown spot here, so I would have to lean Anaheim here, although Carolina only has Seattle up next, so I wish they had a better team up next. I lean Anaheim. You can probably get them plus 1.5 goals on the puck line at a decent price here. Carolina's up from minus 215 to minus 210, but Anaheim's the slightly less rested team here, though. 74% of tickets, 76% of the cash on Carolina, but they are definitely a public side. I lean Anaheim. We've got Islanders at Nashville here. Islanders, they're the team that was on the positive end of that 9-0 win, so you got to think they're going to be really, really satisfied with that win. They're starting a road trip. Normally, I would say a team's going to be focused to start a road trip. In this case, I'm going to disagree because they're coming off a 9-0 win, and up next they play Minnesota, which is a bigger game, so it's a bad spot. But then I look at the spot that Nashville is in, and it might be even worse. Nashville's been on the road since December 27th because they had Christmas prior to that. They had a road game prior to that. I'm laughing at the Predators are not good, dude. They're 19-23 if you factor in overtime losses. They're still not good. Nashville's in a bad spot. Like I was saying, they're returning home from a road trip that they've been on since December 27th. So that's bad when you return home from a road trip. Again, I always talk about you get a little bit distracted. Now, will they overlook the Islanders? They shouldn't because the Islanders have a good record, but Nashville's next game is a big game, and you might say, what the fuck am I talking about? Because it's the Chicago Blackhawks. Yeah, but Nashville-Chicago is a rivalry, man. I'm telling you, these two teams really don't like each other. They hate each other. So that Chicago game is actually bigger than you think. The question is, are they going to overlook the Islanders? But also, is Nashville going to be able to just overcome this return from a long road trip? And I'm not sure that I see it. I can't get involved in the game. You can see why I hate this board, dude. Like, I see nice angles, but then when it's like, I'm like, oh, I want to fade this team or whatever. And then I look at the other team and I'm like, fuck, they're in a fade spot too. The money is taking the Islanders for what it's worth. Nashville's down from minus 122 to minus 107. So again, the odds makers are telling you the Islanders are the better team, although I think everybody's going to agree with that. Don't see the percentages yet, but the early money is on the Islanders in that one. I don't believe Nashville should have been favored by more than home ice, so there is that. The sex offenders, correct. Do not let recency bias deceive you. Edmonton at Winnipeg here. Let me see. Edmonton, they just beat Nashville 6-2. I mean, I don't think they're going to be overconfident off of that win, but Winnipeg's been struggling, man. So does Edmonton overlook Winnipeg? I don't know. I mean, they only have the LA Kings up next and then Chicago. It's not like this is a sandwich spot or anything of the like. Winnipeg still has not broken out of this slump. The slump continues. They've lost 10 games in a row now, and they almost were able to get a win. They lost in overtime to Vegas. Pretty good performance from Winnipeg in that one, but taking Vegas into overtime and losing the game anyway, you might come up a little bit flat coming off of that, man, and not have much left in the tank, even though you'd think they would get up for Edmonton, because it is Edmonton, and Edmonton just beat them in Winnipeg back on December 29th. So I'm not going to say they're going to overlook Edmonton. It's more of a question is Winnipeg going to be tired coming off of that huge game against Vegas where they fell short? So the money is on Edmonton, and I don't disagree because it's just not a bad spot for Edmonton. Edmonton up from down from minus 115 to minus 110, excuse me, but they do have the cash. 50% of the tickets and 62% of the cash on Edmonton. Ottawa at Colorado. Colorado's going to be the biggest favorite of the day here, even though Ottawa's not even that bad. Ottawa did just lose in Utah yesterday, though, so they're playing a back-to-back in high elevation, which is not easy to do. So I don't really know that Ottawa's in the greatest spot here, although they'll try to get up for a game against Colorado, of course. Colorado is returning home from a road trip, although it wasn't a long road trip. They've been on the road since Saturday, but they did go to the Southeast, Carolina, Florida, Tampa Bay. So distance-wise, it did take them a bit far. They actually, after they lost their win streak, they actually did get hung over and they lost to Tampa Bay. So I was correct about Tampa Bay in that one, and Florida the day before that, but I didn't, or the game before that, but I didn't give out either play, unfortunately, because I was right about both of them. The Avalanche whisperer, man. That's when you know that the Avalanche is coming and it's about to bury you. Now, yes, Colorado is coming back home, so it is a difficult spot for them. They only play Columbus next, though, so they don't really have a spot where they're going to overlook an opponent. Could still be maybe a little bit distracted with getting back to stuff at home. Ottawa's already kind of in the area geographically. The money is still coming in on Colorado, it looks like, even though they're down from minus 260 to minus 253. 72% of tickets and 96% of the cash on Colorado. So the money is saying Colorado. I don't know. I slightly disagree with it. I would maybe look towards Ottawa with a huge puck line, but I don't like it by any means. Columbus at Vegas. Columbus coming off a pretty ugly loss, 5-2 at San Jose, so they're in the Pacific time zone now. We had that game. We played San Jose in that game. Columbus was coming off that ridiculous loss against Pittsburgh, where they should have won the game, and they had Vegas and Colorado upcoming, so that was essentially a sandwich spot, plus first game out of the Pacific Coast to start the road trip. Bad spot. Now, this is a better spot for Columbus now. I think they may bounce back from this. Vegas is coming off that overtime game against Winnipeg, but they are also returning home from a road trip they've been on since Friday, where they went to St. Louis, Chicago, and Winnipeg, finishing with 2 overtime games. So the spot is a little bit worse for Vegas. And they are playing St. Louis next, and St. Louis did beat them to start the road trip, so maybe they'll put more weight into that game than this Columbus game. So I prefer Columbus in this one. The money agrees. Vegas is down from minus 185 to minus 152. 71% of tickets on them and only 57% of the cash on Vegas. But it wasn't a long road trip, so that's my hesitation with the fade of Vegas here. Maybe I'm being too selective, but it is what it is. I like Columbus in this one. Might be one of the stronger opinions, though. The market is agreeing with me on that one. And then Minnesota is at Seattle. I don't believe Minnesota's in any sort of bad spot. No, they just lost to the Kings twice. So they're kind of in a bounce back spot here, maybe trying to finish the road trip with a win here. They've had a couple of days off, so it's not really a bad spot for them. Seattle is not even as good as their record looks. The odds makers are telling you Seattle's not good. Seattle just beat the Bruins 7-4. Seattle's won 4 games in a row. They're not going to overlook Minnesota, but Minnesota is the better team. Seattle looks better than they really are right now. I kind of lean towards Minnesota in this one, even though the money is on Seattle. Minnesota's down from minus 150 to minus 147. The market is saying Seattle. 53% of tickets, 79% of the cash on Seattle, but we'll see what happens in that one. I think the stronger opinions for hockey here are, I kind of want to say Calgary, Vancouver, what were a couple of the other? New Jersey, and what was the other one? Columbus. I think those are the 4 that are probably the best of the 4, the best of the hockey board today. Pacers, the Pacers, the market is agreeing with the Pacers, but I have one NBA play, and that is not it. Indiana is at Charlotte here. As we move over to the NBA, Indiana, I can't do it, man. I mean, Indiana just played a big game against Cleveland on Tuesday. They only lost by 4, and they have Miami up next, so I can't do it. I mean, even though, you might argue, well, Indiana keeps losing, so they can't really overlook anybody, but this is a pretty big game against Cleveland. And Indiana, they were winning the game later in the game, I think, right? Yeah, they were still in this game right to the wire, dude. They were down by 1 in the final minutes of the game, so I can't jump on board Indiana after a performance like that. Charlotte is coming off beating me, technically, I guess, last night because Toronto couldn't cover the 1.5 in what was a horrible spot for Charlotte. I could not understand why the market was on Charlotte in that game, even though they covered the 1.5. They still lost the game, so a money line would have won on Toronto, so I'm pissed about that. Charlotte was coming off that mega win against Oklahoma City. They did have technically a worse game last night because they returned home and they lost the game. And when that happens, like I talk about, a lot of times the second game back, the team will do better, but they are playing a 3rd game in 4 days, 4th game in 6 days, 5th game in 8 days. Is that what it is? Yeah. 5th game in 7 days, right? So wait. It's a 3rd game in 4 days. 4th game in 6 days. And and a 5th game in 7 days because there was a back-to-back there too. So it is a rare spot, a 5th game in 7 days. So the schedule is really packed for Charlotte, which is probably why they're getting faded here. And they go out on the road again after this. But I can't play the Pacers either. Money is saying to take the Pacers, but I can't do it. Line's 3.5 on the Hornets, 65% of tickets, 57% of the cash on the Hornets. So the money is somewhat fading the Hornets, but both teams are in bad spots here. It would be one of those games where, to me, I think an over makes sense. With the Hornets just being massively fatigued, I think it affects the defense more. Even though, it kind of affects three-point shooting, but I think it affects defenses the most. Total dropped to 232, but 71% of tickets, 99% of the cash on the over for now. I don't know. I would lean over in that one. Miami at Chicago. But what do I know about totals? I don't really do totals. And I should start checking to see if my opinions are correct on these totals. Miami just got crushed by Minnesota, and I thought that was a bad spot for Minnesota. A hero came back in that game from Miami, but they actually brought him off the bench. He played like 20-something minutes off the bench, so he played a decent amount of minutes, but I think didn't want it to affect like their continuity, so they brought him off the bench. But I don't know what happened in that game, and there's no excuse for Miami losing like that by almost 30 points in a game where they should have zigzagged a bit. It was a bad spot for Minnesota. I'm pissed because we got that game completely wrong, but Miami should bounce back from that, I would imagine. Second game with Hero now. Maybe he re-enters the starting lineup. I don't know, but he is back. They get Chicago here. I think Chicago probably still without Josh Giddey. Chicago just played Boston and Detroit, and Chicago was in this game, man, last night, so I'm pissed about that too. That was a loser last night. Chicago was winning the game outright in the third quarter by 7 points or something like that. And then they were still within like 4 or 5 points in the middle of the fourth quarter. I don't know what happened for them to not even cover that number. Now they get Miami here, and it's technically a return home spot, although only after going to Boston and Detroit. They are on a back-to-back, though, a third game in 4 days. Oh, and by the way, they're in a fifth game in 7 days, the dreaded 5th and 7 for Chicago. This one I like a little bit better than the Indiana one, though. I like the Heat a little bit better. I would play the Heat in this one. You have to lay 7.5 with them, though. They're up from 5.5 to 7.5, but I would still lean that way, although it's kind of, you're losing a little bit of value because it's gone through that key number. I don't know why it moved like that, to be honest. Like, the injury news, I don't really get it because Hero came back last game, so there's no real Heat injury news here. For the Bulls, like, I don't know if Giddey was supposed to come back, and he's still not. I'm assuming he's not, because if he was back, I don't think the Heat would be this big of a favorite. 56% of tickets on the Bulls, 55% of the cash on the Heat. I still agree with the Heat in that game. Cleveland is at Minnesota. I still continue to say that Cleveland's not as bad as their record looks, by the way. And the odds makers continue to tell you that, too. Cleveland, they were coming off a couple of big games, man, where they beat Denver, even though it was without Jokic. Then they played Detroit really close. So Cleveland had a bad game the next game after that against Indiana. They almost lost to Indiana. I think Cleveland should be in a more focused spot here and bounce back from that. That was basically a sandwich spot with Minnesota being a better team up next. Now, Minnesota, they have still struggled when stepping up in class to some extent, man. I mean, Minnesota still doesn't have that many wins against winning teams, although they've been better recently. They are coming off that win over Miami where they absolutely just demolished Miami. So even though this is Cleveland, it is somewhat of a big game here. I like the Cavs in this game. Minnesota just might be feeling a little bit too high on themselves after that last game. The money agrees with me on this as well. The T-Wolves already dropped from a 4-point favorite to a 2-point favorite. Now, for Cleveland, you do have to take into account the injury situation because I think Donovan Mitchell has missed time recently, although it might have been just for rest. Let me see. Yeah, he didn't play against Indiana, but I think it was just rest. There's no real news for him, so I don't think he was injured. I think they rested him in the Indiana game. So that was another thing where Cleveland, I think they just decided to not throw their full effort in that game. So Mitchell will be back, and I don't consider this to be a reverse injured player spot because, again, it was just a scheduled rest for Mitchell. 74% of tickets and only 55% of the cash on the T-Wolves. And the odds makers are kind of telling you that these teams are at least pretty much about even, with the T-Wolves basically being just home court at this point here. So lean to the Cavs in that one. Cleveland is good. Yeah, they're better than the record looks for sure. They've had some injuries and whatever. So I think the Pacers are my least favorite opinion in the NBA, actually. I like the Heat better than that. I like the Cavs better than that. But that's not the game that I like the most, because this last one is. Yeah, the game that I like the most is Dallas -7 against the Jazz. The market seems to be all over this. Mavs are up from 6.5 to 7. I mean, if you can get 6.5, that's even better, because you're off the key number of 7. 73% of the cash on Dallas, 66% of the tickets on the Jazz. This is a spot that I like quite a bit on both sides of the equation. And it looks ridiculous to be laying 7 points, right? Like, why would you lay 7 on the road with a 14-23 team? The Jazz, they're a little bit better at home, I know, 8-11. Mavs are awful on the road at 4-12. So, like, why would I want to do this? Well, it's about the spot, as it always is for me. Dallas is coming off barely getting by Sacramento, and they did have some days off prior to that, but they were coming off beating Houston the game before that, man. Dallas was coming off a monster win. I told you I thought it was a bit of a letdown spot, and they still won against Sacramento, but they played poorly and didn't cover the number and whatever. Although, interestingly, by the way, that Dallas was, I think, probably about a 3-point favorite there in that one, and now they're a 7-point favorite here. So what's going on with Utah here? Because Sacramento is the worst of those two teams, you would think. Now, Dallas is coming off of that. It was an escape. It was a bad performance against Sacramento. I know they're having to go into elevation here or whatever. Dallas did have some rest prior to that game. I think the spot sets up a lot better for them than it does for Utah, though, because Utah is returning home from a road trip that they've been on since January 1st. They went out to the Pacific Coast. They played 3 games out of the Pacific time zone. Then they took Oklahoma City into overtime last night. I mean, I think you just have to fade them after that. That was a monster performance for Utah, almost beating Oklahoma City in Oklahoma City as huge underdogs last night. They fell just short, and on top of that, they have to return home from this entire road trip, which is going to be, like I said, a lot of times it's a distracted spot. Dallas, not exactly a team you're going to have a ton of focus on. They're playing a 3rd game in 4 days as well, 4th game in 6 days, and a 5th game in 8 days, and a 6th game in 10 days as well. So their schedule's been pretty jammed. I think it's a horrible spot for the Jazz. We'll fade them here. The injury situation here, like, what's going on with this number, man? Because there isn't really any injury information on the Utah side other than we already knew Kessler was out for the season. So why is this line where it is for Dallas? I don't exactly know. The injury sheet is, like, pretty clean for Dallas, except for the fact we already knew Kyrie and Derek Lively have both been out for a long time, so that's not changing anything. PJ Washington's the only other guy listed. He's not going to play, it looks like. He's doubtful. He got injured in the Houston game. I think he didn't play against the Kings. So the rest of the Dallas lineup looks like they're in, though, including, I'm assuming AD is playing. So I don't know. I don't exactly know what's going on with this line. Maybe the line is a little bit high because of the rest situation and whatever as well. But again, I'm just playing the spot. I hate the spot. If you want to tie up Dallas in some money line parlays, you could do that. But you know me with parlays. So I think Dallas will get it done. So that is my favorite of the situations at the very least there. Dallas. Then we do have college football. I apologize. Canes, Rebels. It's Miami and Ole Miss in the, the Verbo Fiesta Bowl. I don't even know what Verbo is. The Fiesta Bowl, it's in Glendale. It used to be the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl, man. That's why it's the Fiesta Bowl, because you get tortilla chips and salsa. It's a Fiesta. Come on, man. What happened to Tostitos? Why are they not sponsoring this anymore? But this is in Glendale, Arizona, of course, where it always is. I don't think the location is advantageous for either team. Miami and Ole Miss, obviously. Miami's a 3-point favorite. The money is indicating on Miami slightly. This is one of those games where if you like Miami, you should lay the 3, maybe even with a little bit of extra juice. Probably lay up to about -3 to -120 with Miami. If you like Miami, if you like Ole Miss, you could probably get a 3.5 somewhere. 51% of the cash on Miami, 55% of tickets on Ole Miss. Now, it's tough. I don't have a play in this game. It's tough for me to read the side in this game. Both teams are coming off big upset wins, man. I mean, Miami beat Ohio State, who was basically power rated the best team in the country, and Miami beat them. in an upset. And of course, it was one of those situations where Ohio State had the bye. Those byes hurt, man. Indiana's been the only team since this college football playoff started, even though I know a couple of the teams that had byes last year were just auto byes from being conference winners, which they changed this year. But still, Indiana's the only team to have a bye in the first round of the college football playoff after the restructure and actually win the game, I'm pretty sure. So Miami took advantage of that bye, I think, that Ohio State had, even though I really didn't like Miami in that game, but I was wrong. They won outright. Huge win, though, beating the team that a lot of people thought were going to win the championship. The public thought Ohio State was going to win the championship. But then on the other hand, Ole Miss is coming off a huge win, too, because everybody's been saying Ole Miss can't win without Lane Kiffin. And, oh, yeah, they beat Tulane, but whatever. How can Ole Miss win with, like, some of their coaches being gone, with interim coaches and whatever? Well, Ole Miss just beat Georgia, man. And that was a revenge game as well because Georgia beat them in Georgia earlier this year. And Ole Miss was winning in that game and blew it late in that game against Georgia as well. The game in the regular season, I mean. The game that they just played, Ole Miss was losing by, I think, double digits in the third quarter, too. And they still beat Georgia. Crazy game. So both of these teams are kind of in, like, sort of in spots where I'd want to fade them. Although, of course, there are no letdown spots in playoffs, right? Like, as far as the playoffs, it's like, I might consider there to be a letdown if it was like, you know, if Tulane had beaten Ole Miss or something like that, I would probably fade Tulane in the next game because it was like Tulane had no realistic expectations to win the championship or whatever. So it would be like they would have shot their wad. But this is the semifinals. These two teams, they're gunning for the championship right now, man. That's been their goal for a while. That's what they're going for here. They're two legit teams. Now, because the situation, I think, is similar for both teams, then I think you kind of have to go X's and O's. And what we have here is a matchup where Miami is the better defense and Ole Miss is the better offense. That's kind of the simple way to look at this game, which is why the public is kind of leaning towards Ole Miss because they like these high-flying offenses. Miami has the better defense, and their offense has struggled. Of course, people are not going to like Miami after not scoring that many points in their two playoff games, especially in that ugly Texas A&M game, which is a weird, windy game. I don't know what that was. So people are going to think Miami can't score enough to hang with Ole Miss here. The question, of course, becomes, is Miami's defense going to be able to slow down Ole Miss's offense enough to stay in the game? I would say, yeah, in a way. But if Miami was the underdog here, I would probably like Miami. But, of course, the odds makers are telling you that they're the better team and they're the favorite here. You know, I'm still going to lean with Miami as the better defense. That would be my opinion here. The market seems like it's indicating that way slightly, and it's going against the public in some ways, I think, by playing Miami here. Miami has a little bit more experience, man, I would say, with Carson Beck there, even though he's not the more talented quarterback, I think, against Chambliss, who's looked really good for Ole Miss. But Chambliss, he came into the season 3 games into the season, man. And yeah, even though he's good, he's a lot more green than Carson Beck. Beck has more, like, big game experience, for lack of a better term. Let's put it that way. So maybe you got to lean towards him there. And then I know the coaching situation is not good on either side. You have Ole Miss, I think, is it Jim Moore Jr. who's the interim head coach here or just the OC? I don't know. But, of course, Miami has Mario Cristobal. I mean, he's the more experienced coach, but he's known for making dumb decisions in big game. Well, actually, usually it's more in games against bad teams that he makes dumb decisions. So I don't know. We'll see. And the other thing about Ole Miss, though, is more of their coaching staff has left now. So some of the guys that were on Mississippi's coaching staff for the first 2 games of the playoff, they've actually left. It's insane. In the middle of a potential championship run, they had, like, I think their tight end coach, quarterback coach, and some other coach all left this week, which is ridiculous. So I don't know what Ole Miss is going to do about that, how they're going to respond to that. Now, I've heard some of the professional bettors saying that Miami might be a little bit overvalued in this game because they're factoring in the Ole Miss coaching turmoil into this line here. I don't know how much is being factored in. I think most power ratings guys do still have Miami ranked as the slightly better team, though. And that's the other thing about this game is seeding-wise, Miami's the 10 seed. Ole Miss is the 6 seed. So the public always sees those numbers next to those teams, and they think, oh, The 6 seed is an underdog here. I'm getting points with the 6 against the 10. So that makes it look a little tempting to take Ole Miss as well. I lean Miami, but this is going to sound weird. Even though I like Miami on the side, and it does at least kind of make sense, because I'm going to say that I like the over as well. And it does kind of make sense that the over would be correlated to a favorite winning, because it's easier for a favorite to win when it's going to be a higher scoring game. But because Ole Miss is the better offense, you would think that the over would be correlated to Ole Miss winning the game. So it's all pretty interesting, but I do like the over in this game, and the money has concurred with that. It is up to 52.5. I don't think we were ever going to see the key 51 here, but 53% of tickets are on the over, 64% of the cash on the over. So the public isn't even really loving the over in this game for whatever reason. Miami's offenses look bad, but Ole Miss's defense is weak enough that I think Miami can put up some more points in this game. And Ole Miss, of course, I don't think their offense is going to be completely slowed down by Miami's defense. So I could see this thing getting over. And if it's a close game, basically if both teams get into the mid-20s and it's close down the stretch, you're going to be in decent shape. And, of course, you need both teams to score for it to go over, of course. So those are my thoughts on that game. And that's going to do it, man. Oh, yeah, they can't do Tostitos because of ice. It hasn't been Tostitos for a long time, though. Oh, yes, Jim Mora, that's right. I played that clip last night, but here you go.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game. Another game.
I think Jim Mora Sr. is still alive, too. I think they had him do the playoff thing not that long ago. I don't know. I don't remember. I think some on-field reporter had him say it. All right, that's going to do it, man. Jeffrey, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. I appreciate it. Once again, the plays that I have today are, hopefully we can get back on the winning side here, man, because I know I'm delving into the ugly college basketball card here with Campbell minus the points. Although, again, these lines that I'm giving out here have already moved for the most part. So the market is agreeing with all of these except the Pacific one. UT Martin, I found a great money line price on it, but you might have to lay the points with them now. Little Rock plus the points, Pacific minus the points, or a small money line price there, depending on what numbers are out there. And the Mavs, I know the number's a little crazy, but all about the spot. The Mavs minus the points. We got to get back on the winning side. That's going to do it. I appreciate it, everybody. Learn to Toad on Instagram, Learn to Toad on Twitter. Check it all out. You can check out my NFL bracket special from last night. I will be talking about it with Clint tonight as well, I believe, at 9 p.m. So I got to talk to him again, but I think we're doing that tonight before the NFL playoffs begin this weekend. Obviously, subscribe here. Get me more subscribers, likes on the channel here. Give me good replies, comments, etc. Shit on the people that give me negative comments. Run them out of town. We're on audio as well. Good reviews on audio, and listening on audio helps me as well on Apple and Spotify. Covered in Uke is my Uke channel on YouTube. You can check that out. Patreon.com/LearnToToad. I know I got to get to some of those requests, but you can help me out there. Some bonus Uke stuff. I get real busy, man. I apologize, and my voice sometimes doesn't hold up. I know I did War Pigs the other day just to piss off the warmongers, but it is what it is. And that one held up to my voice a little bit better. What else? Oh, Loser Cast. We were on Tuesday. There might be a Loser Cast tonight. Leighton's been trying to do the Thursday one. I can't do it tonight. If they're going to do one, I don't know if they will. But I don't know. But you can check that out from Tuesday. Check out the Loser Cast show. It's on YouTube for now until we get banned, of course. And I believe that's it. I was on If by Whiskey last night, so you can check that show out, too. That was fun. We did about, I think, an hour and a half on that show. Basically a hangout talking about current events. We talked about sports betting as well and gambling, so you can check that out as well. Mark, one of the hosts of that show, he knows a lot about that industry, so it was fun talking to those guys. Mark and Jake had a good time there. That's gonna do it, man. I appreciate it. Peace. Let's have a good Thursday.